Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into a battle from 1917 that was, well, a total mess. The Battle of Cambrai. It started as this incredible success and then became a bitter failure, ending in a stalemate. But here's the thing, it completely changed the rules of war forever. So how did a battle that nobody really won end up being so important? Let's get into it.
So let's kick things off with this quote from the German commander on the scene, Crown Prince Ruprecht. I think this just perfectly sums up the shockwave this battle sent across the entire war. Before this, there were parts of the front line you could call quiet sectors. After Cambrai, nope. The German high command suddenly realized a massive, surprise attack could come out of nowhere. At any time, on any front, the whole game had changed.
All right, so Section 1, a radical new plan. What exactly caused all this shock and awe? Well, to get it, you really have to put yourself on the Western Front in late 1917. It's just this brutal, muddy stalemate. I mean, for years, millions of men have been dying for like inches of ground. The British were absolutely desperate for any way to break through. And that desperation, it cooked up something totally new.
And this was the big problem they were facing, the Hindenburg Line. And look, this thing wasn't just a trench. It was a monster. A massive, deep defensive system with concrete bunkers, machine gun nests, and just endless fields of barbed wire. The Germans were convinced it was unbreakable. So if the British wanted to punch through, they couldn't just throw more men at it. They needed a plan that was, well, revolutionary.
And this was the plan they came up with. It really was like a symphony of modern warfare, with all the pieces working together. First, a surprise artillery attack. And this part is key. They used new math to aim the guns without firing any test shots. That meant the Germans had zero warning it was coming. Then, bam, a huge wave of tanks to just crush the barbed wire. Infantry would pour in right behind them, and all the while, planes would be hitting targets from the sky. This wasn't just another push. This was a true combined arms operation, everything hitting at once. Okay, Section 2, the tank breakthrough. So, November 20th, 1917, the plan goes live. And what happened next was, honestly, one of the most stunning successes of the entire war. The breakthrough was so huge, so dramatic, that for a moment, it really looked like this could be it, the big one, the attack that would finally win the war.
The key to it all? This number right here, 476. That's how many tanks the British unleashed. Almost 500 of these steel beasts just rolling across no man's land. I mean, nothing like this had ever been seen before. You have to imagine being a German soldier in those trenches. It would have looked like the end of the world.
And the result? Absolutely spectacular. In just 6 hours, they pushed 5 miles deep into the German lines. They just tore a hole right through the unbreakable Hindenburg Line. A speed like that, it was just unthinkable on the Western Front. Now, to really put that into perspective, just look at this comparison. At Passchendaele, which had just wrapped up, getting that same 5 miles of ground took 3 months. 3 agonizing months in the mud, costing hundreds of thousands of lives. At Cambrai, they did it in 6 hours with about 4,000 casualties on day 1. I mean, the difference is just staggering.
The news was so good, so unbelievably positive, that back in Britain, something happened that hadn't happened in years. They rang the church bells. For the first time since the war started in 1914, the bells rang out in celebration. Can you imagine? For just a moment, everyone thought, this is it. We're finally winning.
Right, Section 3, the attack grinds down. But it wasn't the beginning of the end. That amazing success story, it started to fall apart, and fast. The tank, this new wonder weapon, had some serious weak spots. And the Germans, well, they were a long way from being beaten. So let's look at how this all started to go wrong. Yeah, the tanks were not invincible, not by a long shot. And this chart really shows you the biggest problem. Look at the tanks lost on day 1. A whopping 40% of them just broke down. Mechanical failure. Another 24% got ditched in trenches or stuck in the mud. So most of the tanks weren't even knocked out by the enemy. The tech was just brand new and super unreliable.
And where the Germans did stand and fight, they fought hard. They were smart and tough. In fortified places like the village of Flesquières, they had specialist anti-tank teams ready. These guys had already learned how to take on tanks, and they inflicted some serious damage, slowing that incredible British advance right down to a bloody, grinding crawl.
Okay, next up, the German counterpunch. So just as the British attack is starting to run out of gas, they're low on reserves, things are slowing down, the Germans get ready to hit back.
And they had a tactical surprise of their own up their sleeve, proving they'd been learning a few things too.
And this is what they used. They called them Hutier tactics, or stormtrooper tactics. And this was the total opposite of the old go over the top in a straight line attack. It was all about speed, surprise, and infiltration. First, a really short, violent artillery barrage. Then, elite stormtroopers would sneak through the lines, go around the strong points instead of attacking them head-on, and just cause absolute chaos in the rear.
You know, this table really sums it up perfectly. Cambrai was basically a giant laboratory for new ways to fight. You had the British with their massed tank assault, and the Germans responding with their new anti-tank units. The British hit them with a surprise artillery barrage, and the Germans hit back with their own surprise infiltration tactics. It was like watching two totally different ideas about the future of war just slam right into each other.
And that German counterpunch on November 30th? It was devastating. Absolutely devastating. Using those new stormtrooper tactics, they just shattered the British lines. And in just a few days, they took back almost all the ground that the British had gained. The same ground that had caused the church bells to ring just 10 days before was gone.
So let's talk about the battle's true legacy. Because after all was said and done, the battle lines were pretty much right back where they started. So what was the point? After all that innovation, all that bloodshed, all that hope, why on earth are we still talking about this battle today? What was its real legacy?
Well, if you just look at the final scorecard, it looks like another pointless, bloody stalemate, right? Horrific casualties on both sides for almost zero change on the map. But the real story of Cambrai, its true importance, isn't something you can measure in miles of mud.
Because the real legacy, it wasn't about territory, it was about the ideas. Cambrai was a live-fire test kitchen for the future of war. All the stuff that would dominate the rest of World War I, and basically all of World War II, it was all here. Massed armored warfare, combined arms, predicted artillery, stormtrooper infiltration, specialized anti-tank defenses. It all got its first big test right here at Cambrai.
And that right there is the crucial takeaway. Cambrai gave both sides this terrifying but invaluable peek into what the future of war was going to look like. It was a battle with no clear winner on the scorecard, but it left behind this incredible playbook of lessons that would shape the next 30 years of conflict, which really leaves you with one big question, doesn't it? In a battle that no one really won, who learned the right lessons to win the wars of the future?